Hi everybody, I'm Erin, and I'm a board-certified pediatrician. And today I'm going to give you 10 things you can start right now to help support your child's mental health, pandemic or not. So if you feel like things could be going better, then you've come to the right place. So let's get started. Okay, number one, this is the big one. If you don't have time to watch the rest of the video, that's okay. If this is all you take away from it, I will be satisfied. Not happy, but satisfied. So here it is. Ready? Empathy. Wait, don't click away. I know that sounds obvious, but let's talk about why this is extra true for kids right now. Kids are suffering. Everyone is suffering. Everyone is grieving the loss of something. Maybe it's the loss of an actual person, a family member or a friend, or maybe it's just the loss of a milestone event, missing out on your regular baseball season or missing out on graduation. Everyone is feeling a sense of loss. When your 4-year-old melts down about having to wear a mask, or your 8-year-old complains about not being able to have their birthday party at the bowling alley, it can be really tempting to remind them of why it is that things are the way they are, and this is why you have to wear the mask, and this is why you can't go see your boyfriend. But here's the thing, they already know. What they need from you is to hear that they're struggling and to be on their side. They need you to say, you know what, you're totally right. It's so wrong that you can't just hang out with your boyfriend on a Friday night. You should totally be able to do that, and it is completely messed up that you can't. Or, I know, masks are so uncomfortable. It's terrible to have to wear them for so long, all day while you're at preschool. You're totally right. This goes such a long way in helping them manage the big feelings that they have around all these sacrifices that they're making. As hard as it is, resist the urge to tell them why things are the way they are and that everything's going to be fine. And if you think about it, you already know to do this. If a friend complained to you about something that was happening to their family because of the pandemic, you wouldn't say, yeah, but we have to do it. Who is that person? No, you'd say, I know, it totally sucks. I mean, just last week, little John, you already know how to do this with adults. This is also helpful for kids. Why is it helpful for kids? Because then they're not alone. They're not struggling alone. There's an adult in their life that understands. Now, they'd love it if you could solve the problem, but they need to know that you understand the problem in order to solve it. How can they trust that you're doing everything that you can to meet these unmet needs that they have if you don't fully comprehend what those needs are? This might actually be the most impactful thing you can do for your kids. It's incredibly powerful to know that someone understands your struggle. Try this with your kids and let me know in the comments if it turned things around. Number 2. Let's try to limit our catastrophic thinking. But we don't catastrophize about the long-term impact of the pandemic on your kids, or you, or the price of remote learning on education, or pork belly futures. Anyway, keeping our hopes up for the future is so beneficial for our mental health. Having what we call positive expectancy is the belief that the future is bright and that things will get better. Lacking that positive expectancy is one of the hallmarks of depression. The idea that things are bad and that they're never going to change. We don't want to teach our kids to catastrophize and focus on worst case scenarios, because that's a hallmark of anxiety. And we don't need to teach our kids how to worry. Number 3, kids really rely on having a safe and predictable home base. And I'm going to talk more about this later. But in addition to this, kids also need a sense of control. Everyone needs to feel like they have some sense of agency over their world. It helps to foster what we call an internal locus of control. It helps people to feel like there's some order in the world, and everyone needs this, regardless of age. But one age group that has particular difficulty with this need for control is toddlers. Toddlers actually have shockingly few opportunities to control their world. They're pretty much at our mercy most of the time. And if they're not given the chance to exert control for their world in helpful ways, they'll find not helpful ways to exert control. Anyone who's ever spent any time with a 3-year-old knows that almost anything can become a power struggle if you try hard enough. But you can help them to satisfy this need for control by engineering opportunities for them to control their world. A or B decisions are great at this age. Do you want to wear these pants or these pants today? Don't fall into the trap of asking them which pants they want to wear. If they have more than 2 pairs of pants, then that question is too difficult and they're not ready for it, and it'll just cause them stress. But giving them an either or allows you to choose 2 pairs of pants that are appropriate for the weather and the activities for that day, while still giving them that sense of agency. The more times you can work this strategy into the day of a toddler, the easier it'll be for them to be compliant when they don't have a choice, like when you have to strap them into their car seat. Number 4, self-care. It's so important. It's vital when things are going well, and it's even more critical when things aren't going well and you have 0 free time. Why is this? Well, first of all, because you can't fill from an empty cup, blah, blah, blah. I know, it's tired because it's true. But even more importantly, you need to take care of yourself and not self-destruct because your kids are watching. You are teaching them all the time, every day, whether you think about it or not. You're teaching them how to be an adult, how to be a parent and a neighbor or a friend or a colleague. You're showing them how to deal when things get tough. This is really important. Here's what I am not saying. I am not saying that you shouldn't let them see you struggle. You should absolutely let them see you struggle. Talk out loud through the times when you make a mistake and how you are going about trying to fix it. Or when you're feeling down, let them see you reach out to a friend for support. Do the things in front of your children that you'd want your children to do when they grow up if they're in a difficult situation. Because like it or not, they're gonna have times in their life when they struggle. And you want them to be comfortable asking for help when they need it. And you want them to have a laundry list of problem-solving skills and healthy coping strategies that they've watched you use over their little lifetimes. Number 5, give your kids and yourself something to look forward to. One of the biggest obstacles in this pandemic is that it's taken away a lot of the things that we look forward to. And it's so beneficial for our well-being to have these events and activities in our futures to anticipate. They don't have to be big. Maybe you plan a picnic for the weekend, or you set up a play date at a nearby park. But tell your kids about these plans and take time together to talk about the details in advance. That anticipation is so good for our mental health. Orchestrating opportunities for you and your kids to have it can be so beneficial. There are studies that have shown that people derive as much positive emotional benefit from the anticipation of a vacation as they do from the vacation itself. So don't just spring a fun event on your kids. Give them some time to look forward to it. Number 6, get outside. I talked to a teenager the other day who hadn't been outside of her house for 4 months. Even if all you do is go outside and sit on your front step for 15 minutes. Get outside of a building. It doesn't have to be a big deal. You don't have to summit Everest. Just drag everybody outside for a few minutes. Okay, number 7, 8, and 9 are based on research from the 70s that examined what it was in kids' lives that protected them from toxic stress. They looked at kids who experienced chronic physical or emotional abuse or extreme poverty, and they studied the kids who came out on the other side of those situations and were still able to do well. They found that those kids that were still able to thrive had 3 things in their lives. 7, they had an adult in their lives that loved them to pieces. They felt connected to this person, cared for by them, and they felt reassured that their needs were going to be met despite their situation. So if you're watching this video, then congratulations, your child is lucky. We know that they already have this one. 2, or 8, they had something in their life that gave it meaning. And maybe it was religion or a sport, or academics were important to them, or they were working through the levels of a video game. Maybe they were getting better at macrame. It doesn't matter. Maybe you've already thought of the thing in your child's life that might be this thing for them, or maybe you can't think of one. And that's okay, because you can engineer one for them. Maybe you can help them look through volunteer opportunities in your area, and you can pick out one that they're interested in. It doesn't even need to be that complicated. You can sit them down and let them know that things are tough and you need some extra help right now. And then put them in charge of whatever household tasks you think they can handle. And then step back and don't do the thing that they said they would do. And if they do any of those things, even if they're not perfect, maybe especially if they're not perfect, mention it. Don't make a big to-do about it. Don't throw a parade. Teenagers find it really patronizing when we excessively praise them for things that they feel shouldn't be a big deal. But some phrases that you can use that are helpful are, I noticed that you, thank you, that really helps me out. And then walk away. Just leave it at that. Being a reliable and contributing member of the family can absolutely be enough to give kids a sense of purpose. Number 3, or 9, having a safe place to be. And this doesn't mean that they're worried that the house is going to burn down, or it means that their home life is predictable. Daily life needs to have a sense of consistency. They need to know what's going to happen and roughly what time. Even kids who have no concept of time need structure in their days to be calm and confident. And this is why we're always harping on routines. And I know you've heard this before, but I don't want you to think this has to be a rigid military-style protocol where every second is accounted for. In fact, please don't do that. A routine is different from a schedule. A schedule has a specific timetable, whereas a routine is more flexible, and it just gives guidelines for what order activities should take place in throughout the day, with flexibility for exactly when those activities should start and end. You can put up a paper schedule so the whole family can see it, with just rough times, or even without times, depending on how old your children are. That said, timers can be an excellent way to prep kids for transitions from one activity to the next. Having a routine gives kids structure to their day. Anyone who's ever watched Moana for the 30th time knows that kids crave repetition. They thrive on predictability. People benefit from predictability. It's calming to have consistency and to know what's going to happen next. But parents, or adults, benefit uniquely from having a routine in that it helps decrease decision fatigue. Just having a routine can decrease the need to constantly plan and make decisions about what's going to happen next. You can just look at the daily plan and move on to the next thing. It's remarkably freeing. Lastly, I want you to remember that the real definition of mental health is not being happy all the time. Being mentally healthy means having the appropriate emotion for the situation. Keeping that in mind, if you have any concerns that what your child is experiencing is more than just a little temporary sadness because they missed an important event or some normal stress from transitioning back to school, then go to your pediatrician or your child's doctor, because there are ways to help with depression and anxiety. We have methods to identify kids who are experiencing normal, appropriate sadness for their situation versus those who are meeting criteria for the diagnosis of depression or anxiety. And with both depression and anxiety, it's so much easier to initiate treatment in the early stages than it is to try to tough it out and then have to start treatment when a kid is in really deep. And this is especially true for teenagers who are self-aware enough to be self-conscious about talking to someone that they don't know about personal, sensitive topics. So I think everyone needs a therapist. Everyone with a body needs a doctor. I'm talking to you, dads. And everyone with a functioning brain needs their own therapist. But I digress. If you're not sure, talk to your pediatrician, and they can help you do some screening to make sure that your child doesn't need more help. I just want you to keep in mind that pain or trauma is not a zero-sum game. And I hear this all the time. I know that everyone's going through this. Just because everyone's experiencing trauma right now doesn't mean that you or your child isn't experiencing trauma. Don't minimize that experience for your child. It's helpful for both of you to acknowledge that this is difficult and everyone is having pandemic fatigue. And that doesn't mean that you're not having it. So hopefully you were able to grab 1 or 2 tips from that list that will help you to support your kids a little bit better right now. If this was helpful for you, you might like the next video, 1 phrase that will transform the way you address behavior problems. If so, you can click up here to subscribe and hit the notification bell, and YouTube will let you know when it's released. YouTube thinks that you might like this video as well. And as always, remember that the best way to take care of your kids is to take care of yourself. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.